off to see the wizard.
So, Wicked for Good is the 2025 sequel to 2024's highly successful Oscar-worthy film Wicked, a adaptation of the 2004 stage musical Wicked, based on the 1939 American musical fantasy film The Wizard of Oz, based on the 1900 novel The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. Now, this is one of the most endearing and most long-lasting properties in all of Hollywood. The Wizard of Oz, the original film, is one of the most memorable and widely referenced and cited films of all time, and I would argue has the most iconic characters all of cinema. This is one of the top films of all time, and it is one of the biggest films of all time, and as such, the ensuing adaptations and the novel, and as such, this is one of the biggest IPs or intellectual properties of the modern era of the past 100 years, and it seemed inevitable to anyone who was aware of the stage musical that this would eventually become an adaptation and that there would eventually be a story told on cinema based on the stage musical. Now, as someone who wasn't overly familiar with the stage musical, I have to say that when going into the original Wicked film, I came at it with a sense of not sort of like exasperation and going, I don't want to see this because I have already read the reviews. I have already heard all of the things that I have heard about it, and I have heard how bad it is, and I have heard how almost offensive it is to the original film. And I don't think the film is necessarily that bad. I think Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo at the center of that original film are pretty damn good, manage to center each other in a way that builds a clear, lasting relationship that has survived both on-screen and off-screen.
Not the time, helicopter!
Although to some extent, I think the off-screen relationship is a bit weird and is a bit stark and worrying, some might say. Although I have to say that I think a lot of the concerns about the off-screen relationship are steeped in racism as much as anything else. If you spend enough time on the internet and surrounding this topic, you will see Cynthia Erivo seemingly getting a lot more of the attention and blame for this weird relationship that is playing out in public, and a lot of that blame seems to suggest that Cynthia Erivo is in some way responsible for Ariana Grande apparently changing her appearance or changing her look. Whereas, in my opinion, I think it is much more likely to just say that they are friends who have probably had a negative or positive impact on each other, and that ultimately these are two women who are both in their 30s and probably need to take as much responsibility for their own actions rather than blaming the other person. Ultimately, going into Wicked for Good, there was so much writing on this film, both for people who wanted it to be bad and for people who wanted it to be good. And I come away from Wicked for Good thinking that ultimately this is pretty bad. I don't know if I hate it quite as much as other people do, because ultimately I still think at the center of this film, Ariana Grande is really good, and to start off at the surface level and to discuss what I think is good about this film, it is necessary to say that Ariana Grande in this film is able to deliver a level of emotional depth and capacity that I didn't even know existed in her as a person, never mind a character. And she takes herself to such extremes for this role that I think I am quite pleasantly surprised, and I'm actually quite interested to see, is she able to really push herself further? And would she be able to, say, win an Oscar? Although I do think she is on the path for an Oscar nomination for this film, I don't think she's going to win it. I think the Best Actress race is starting to heat up, and I think the clear frontrunner is Jessie Buckley. I also think Jennifer Lawrence is pretty good in Die My Love. I think this will be too much of that sort of box office fatigue or whatever it is that Steven Spielberg talked about with Jaws, where ultimately this will be too big for its own good. Ariana Grande will be seen as too commercial for the Oscars and too big for what is now seen as a independent and art house focused Oscars and Academy. I don't think they're going to have that much interest in Ariana Grande for this. Her ability in this film to swing between three different moods, the musical factor, the humor factor, and then the emotional and sensitivity factor, is really endearing to me. It's a really difficult role because she has so much to put on her shoulders, and the thing that I don't like about this film is that not much happens, which means that so much is put on the actors. And I actually think that what Jonathan Bailey and Cynthia Erivo in some respect struggle with in this film is what Ariana Grande almost thrives on, is that you can kind of tell that they need something to work with more than what they've got. Whereas I almost feel like Ariana Grande goes, I don't have anything to do, I just have to be myself, and I have to just be the center of attention. All right, I can do that. That's fine. I'm a pop star. I'm a megastar. I've been doing this shit since I was, 11, 12, whenever she was on Victorious. I can fucking wipe the floor with these guys. And I think she does that. I think she's great in this film. As I said, Erivo and Bailey, I was a bit disappointed by. I don't think Erivo does nearly as much in this film as she does in the original film. And I think that a big reason for that is that her defining moment across these films is defying gravity, which comes at the end of the original film. I think that ultimately with this, it kind of feels like it's almost leftovers, and it's everything from the next day. She's here, she has to do this, but it doesn't really feel like she has much to do. And ultimately, it kind of just feels like she's almost being a mirror to Ariana Grande and allowing Ariana Grande to be the center of attention of this film. Jonathan Bailey is a bit wooden, although I will say that given where his character goes in this film, no spoilers, that kind of makes sense. So I don't have as much of an issue with that as I have with Cynthia Erivo in this film. The two big issues with this film is that nothing happens and that it looks like shit. Because the film looks so bad, I want to focus on what's happening on screen. Yet, because there is nothing happening on screen, I have to focus on what I'm looking at. And therefore, I kind of just came out of this film feeling a bit nauseous and feeling a bit like I was going to throw up. This film looks terrible. And this is a film that won Best Costume Design, I believe it is, at last year's Oscars. And I can't see a costume in this film because the entire thing is blurred out. I feel like if I just recorded here and like I was like this, and the entire background behind me was just blurry. This film is 2 hours and 20 minutes. The previous one is nearly 3 hours. And this is some of the most successful films of the last 2 years. Earlier this year, I said that I thought Jurassic World Rebirth looks pretty good. I do think that looks pretty good. At least I can kind of capture a semblance of where people are on the screen and the environment that they're in. There is none of that in this film. I have no idea what's going on. To have half of your film set in Emerald City, the other half set in Oz, and to never show that, to never explore it, is fucking wild. No one involved in this film has the technical ability to shoot and to show you a complex environment that takes time to build, to make good, and to make appealing for the eyes. No one involved in this production has the ability to do that, so it has to be close up. It has to be blurred, so that all you're focused on is the face, and therefore it puts so much more on the actors, and therefore I don't really feel it's right to criticize Erivo and Bailey too deeply. Part of the reason so much of my attention is drawn to the fact that this film looks terrible is because there's nothing going on. This is based on a stage musical that I believe is about 2 hours 30, 2 hours 40. This in total runs for about 6 hours across the two films. In the first film, I remember thinking like, okay, at least a lot's happening. And a lot of that is sort of superficial and is kind of meaningless ultimately to the plot. But at least there was some, like drama between the leads, and there was a lot of musical pieces. In this, the musical pieces are a lot duller. I don't care about any of the musical pieces other than maybe one or two. The final musical piece I do really like, but the music for the majority of the film, particularly the midsection, is pretty bad. I don't really care about any of it. And ultimately, the issue with this film is that it feels like it knows that its big musical piece is in the first film. The song that everyone will remember from the era of these two films is Cynthia Erivo banging out Defying Gravity, and this film is never able to reach those heights. As much as I like the final song, I'm still so surprised by the success of these films, because I understand how much love there is for the stage musical and how much there has been a fandom that has been built up for 20-25 years at this point. On the other hand, there seems to be a lack of desire and want. It has to be more. Even as myself, I still look at this and go, surely not. Surely the stage musical had so much more than this, because it feels ultimately kind of disrespectful to the original stage musical. And that doesn't even reference the fact that I think key pieces and key decisions made in the course of these two films feel pretty disrespectful to the original film and the original book. The decisions, plot-wise and narratively, in my opinion, come across as pretty disrespectful to the original material. And this is a spoiler, be warned, but the decision to not kill the Wicked Witch at the end of this film is so dumb. This is someone taking an original property and going, but what about my idea? And I hate that. That's almost as bad to me as someone putting in to ChatGPT and saying, I actually really don't like how the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz is kind of bastardized, and I think actually she's the victim. Can you spin me a new story around this IP? And they came out with Wicked. To me, that's just the same thing, where it's like, okay, you don't think the Wicked Witch of the West is the villain? Make your own thing. Make Wicked, but change the names of the characters. And if you want to come out in interviews and go, I was heavily inspired by The Wizard of Oz, all right, fine. But to co-opt the characters of this film and this novel and just go, yeah, they're mine now, but it's my own story because you actually got it wrong.
Peter, what are you doing? Crack? What the fuck?
The other decision that I find really disrespectful in this film is the decision to not cast anyone as Dorothy. And this is me with my Tin Man hat, my conspiracy theory hat. I believe that the decision to not recast Dorothy in this film is a overt decision designed to protect Hollywood and to protect studios and to protect the other original crew and cast from the original The Wizard of Oz film from scrutiny based on the treatment of Judy Garland and the ensuing overdose in her 30s. This is a decision designed to not draw criticism and to make sure that people do not discuss Judy Garland. The decision to not have them is so that people don't go, that young actress who played Dorothy, she was so good, but actually, I really love Judy Garland. Whatever happened to her? And then going and looking that up, or just discussing it and going, oh, well, Wicked was so successful, but what happened to Judy Garland was so fucked. These studios and this cast and crew and whoever else should be criticised, and Judy Garland should be remembered for that, and she should be, in some sense, remembered for her attempt to speak out for the abuse that she ensued and that she dealt with, and actually the decision to omit Dorothy in this film is a disrespectful decision to her as an actress. I think that the film overall looks pretty shit. I don't think anything happens, but I wouldn't hate it if Ariana Grande got an Oscar nom for this. I think she's pretty good, and ultimately, if she's interested in returning to a deeper level of an acting career that she hasn't done in, I believe, about 15-20 years now, wouldn't hate it.